What's going on, my silly little motherfuckers? All right, good morning, and just wanted to chime in on a couple of things. Same thing, we're gonna run AMC's done, everything like that. Robot Godzilla, blockchain, everything. Don't worry about that. This is it, so whatever. But I wanted to chime in on something, because I was having some thoughts this morning. And before I start speaking to the entire universe, I try to take a little bit of time to pull away and just kind of like reflect on things. And sometimes you look in the past and what just happened, and it kind of like lays out the future. So you kind of like avoid some crazy shit. And I was just thinking to myself, like, you know, we beat the other side. You're going to see that in the next couple of days. We beat the other side because everybody held and stuff like that. Yeah, everything completely, whatever, you know, and then things were brought up. But in the end, obviously, with Mike Ginsler, he pushed the victory over the line, what we needed. I mean, I know in time people are going to look back at this. So I guess this is like a record of that, as long as YouTube keeps this video up. You know, I think back at 2008, and it didn't start with 2008. It started long before 2008. And I think back at that time, and people forget about it. Most of the people in this play now were probably teenagers back then. Probably, yeah, teenagers. And some people my age in this, they could look back and remember that in the 90s, you know, when they were selling the banks were selling the mortgages to Wall Street, and Wall Street was obviously wrapping them up and selling them as an investment, you know, packages. At a certain point, they wanted to expand how many mortgages were available. So obviously, the banks with their agents, the mortgage brokers, started creating these wild things for more people that shouldn't have been in a mortgage or buying a home outside of their, you know, salary structure. They jumped in because it was made easy for them to come and be a homeowner. And then we all know how that led up when they couldn't afford the payments when those rates adjusted, which led to the chaos of 2008, which the government had to bail out, which I wasn't a fan of at all. I've always believed that if you failed, go fuck yourself, rebuild. Even if it, so what? The U.S. economy would have went down, it would have been hard for 3 or 4 years, but then we'd have rebuilt with an entire different reset. It would have been amazing. But we fucked up and that didn't happen. So now fast forward to this play. Here we go, we had millions and millions and millions of people that were not in Wall Street. And in order for them to get to Wall Street, there was one barrier. They always needed a broker. And that was like a gray zone. Like all my time, I always remember that there was nobody really knew how to approach which broker, where would I find a broker? Well, aren't only brokers in New York? And if you lived in certain rural places in America and in Canada, overseas, it was not easy to get access to a broker. I mean, no joke, like overseas, like finding a broker, specific banks for specific wealth class of people, in major city centers. I mean, it was very hard to get into Wall Street, next to impossible. So Wall Street wanted that money. It was actually Goldman that actually spotted retail being the big dog. Like, I give credits to Goldman. Goldman spotted that retail was the sleeping giant long before anybody else did. Somebody else did as well. My devil. My devil. So obviously, he created this massive Skynet, yada, yada, yada. And then the key thing happened, just like before 2008. Back then, they adjusted the mortgages, like the adjustable rate, you know, zero down, we'll take any income, no income, whatever, no verification. What started all this was the free broker apps. And let me explain to you how that was set up. that put a virtual digital broker in the palms of the hands of people who should not have been in the market because they didn't have disposable income in order to invest. They just didn't have it. A lot of people were just taking money from their paycheck that they should have done with other things, and they put money into the market because it was easy now, because it was on their phone. You know, it's really strange because when Mike Gensler talks about gamification, I agree completely. But one of the things that I look at, it was the accessibility to the market that ensnared millions of people to get into plays. People taking call options. I mean, like, it got to a point where it's like, whoa, that's not how I came up. Like, I was always taught, like, when you come in at first, whatever, you know, you take a look at a company that's solid, making money, you buy some shares in it, and you write it up. Playing options was for somebody that was studying the trends of that industry, the business, news that was coming out, approvals, just things like that in order for you to gauge what was going to happen. Not if I felt lucky or if I think it's going to go up or down. So anyway, these free broker apps allow people to come in, and a lot of people got ensnared into everything. And obviously that led to the GameStop and the Virgin Galactic, Beyond Meat, Wendy's, Nokia, BlackBerry, all the massive money being thrown at it. And obviously the Wall Street benefited from it to a ridiculous level. I mean, we're really not going to know the numbers, but it's just staggering. But then something happened along the way. Obviously, you got Mike Gensler and his people. They started noticing certain things were like, what the fuck is going on here? And then people from the street or people that have been investing for a lot of years, people in tech, started kind of like jumping on these boards and talking and seeing what's going on. And that led to kind of like, you guys had a, it was almost like the blind found a person that can see. And there was multiple, it wasn't just me. There was multiple people out there that chimed in and came in and said, you know, hey, look, this is not right. This is not, why is this going on? Wait a minute, we're dealing with this market maker. Is anybody tracking? You know, like the kind of shit I was saying, I mean, I took it to a crackhead level, like, trust me. Like, I've had people even tell me, like, are you insane? And I'm like, you know, sometimes, you know, maybe, but at the end, it shined light on this whole thing. Unlike in 2008 and before, nobody had information on what was going on. Like, wait a minute, you make X amount of money, but you bought a $500,000 house, and your mortgage is gonna adjust in 6 months, a year. You've been in this house paying like pennies, but when it adjusts, your mortgage is gonna be like $4,000 a month. Nobody was there pointing that out. This vehicle of technology wasn't there to the way it is now on the phone. But this time around was different. And I think that's the one wild card the other side didn't factor in on. It didn't factor in the fact that we were not going to communicate only to pump each other up. No, we were going to communicate to educate all of the people in this community on what exactly was going on, because without that, people would have sold off and the other side would have won, and they would have benefited from all the faded derivatives, all that money. They would have benefited from all the plays that they put everybody to bag hold across the board. I know people that are seasoned investors, and they put money in plays, and they researched, and the company was solid, everything was good, and at the end, the stock went down. Just like what happened on the other Friday. Remember 21? People wanted to make sure we ended in the money, and guess what happened? It went down. I was trying to explain that to people for the longest time, and nobody believed me until they saw it live. Anyway, those little social experience and communications and, you know, the calls and everything like that led to our community being able to resist the nefarious intentions of that side. And at a certain point, it really did become, I mean, it became cruelty, because some of the people, like I said, like back in, people getting into mortgages they shouldn't have. That's what happened in this. There were people in this play, or these plays, that shouldn't have been in the market. They really needed this money. And at the end of the day, they were just, I'm not saying this was swindled in, but it was just put in front of, like putting freaking French fries in front of a person that's fucking obese and expecting him to hold on to his diet. It's just not really gonna work. It's not that you're pushing it on him, but you're making it available to that person in order for that person to come in. That being said, people look back now and they look at this nonsense of GameStop and AMC because, hey, everything will run. This is it, people. We have now, Christ, we got an exchange right now that uses like blockchain, T0. Like we have that. We're in that world now. We have transparency. Different world. But I just want to tell you something. When we move forward past this play, let's say after GameStop, AMC run and sundown, whatever, like we're in this. I want to share something with you guys. In the future, I understand that the free apps became something that were obviously, easy to turn to, and obviously people use them. But you're gonna have the money. I think really, if you're gonna do plays, you can still use the technology and stuff, the free broker apps or whatever it may be. They're probably not gonna stay free forever. But I really do suggest you looking at using a broker for your transactions, just because yes, you pay, but there's something nefarious about the free broker apps. Listen, with the new regulations that's coming in, they're gonna be cleaned up. I can tell you, Gensler has his eyes on them. So they're gonna be cleaned up and everything. But understand something, that's how this whole nightmare started. They set everybody up, they knew they were gonna use social media. They're the ones that created to the moon or 1 million and everyone's gonna be rich. They're the ones that created all the craziness. Let me tell you something, it was because it was like giving crack to crackheads. At the end of the day, people just jumped in. So following up on that video I did last night, one of the things, like I said, I'm happy because I'm not gonna save all you motherfuckers. That's just something I've had to come to accept over the last couple of months. Really, the last couple of days, I've really absorbed it in. And it's obviously, there's a bit of sadness in that because I wanted everybody to win. But that's not the way life works. This is Wall Street. People are gonna get burned. Like I said, you hold to whatever number you want. You sell when you want. Are high numbers possible? Of course they are. There's a couple of other things that are gonna be happening along the way. Nobody really knows how they're gonna structure this. A private event? Are they gonna allow FOMO in? Are they not gonna allow FOMO in? There's a lot of things that are gonna happen. But that being said, now you understand how we all got here, and now you understand how we turned the tables on them, thanks to the head of the SEC, Gensler, because there's no denying at the end of the day what he's done. I mean, as we're speaking right now, the DOJ and the feds are like, doing what they're doing, and for whatever, I don't wish that type of shit on anybody, but it's crazy because here we are now about to wrap this thing up. And, I've been telling you guys for the longest time, check your numbers, have your brackets, make sure your broker's okay, make sure that your accounts are not, unless you want them, make sure that whether they're going to be margin or cash. Find out how your broker will act if there's a liquidity crisis. Prepare yourself for your transferring the money out to your bank. Make sure there's no snags in this. I mean, I've worked with you guys so much, and I've learned to love you motherfuckers, even the ones that I still want to fucking choke. But that being said, looking back now, you'll understand how this all started. And through the process of people with a combined vision of wanting something better as a community, we turned the tables. Then we were fortunate enough to have, obviously, the head of the SEC be somebody that was eye and eye with us. So I just wanted to tell you motherfuckers, enjoy your Friday. I'll be around, we'll be laughing, we'll be doing all kinds of stuff, but what a fucking wonderful ride this has been. Love you, motherfuckers.